Dan svima, dobrodošli na 8. predavanju drugog ciklusa Bio-Balkan koleba Beauty in the Beasts. Danas smo iz Bio-Balkan organizacijskog tima sa vama Milica, Lejla i ja, Stina. Predavači će zbog jezične barijere danas predavati na engleskom jeziku, tako da ćemo i mi uvod nastaviti na engleskom. I zbog toga jer su danas 3 predavača će isto tako uvod biti nekoliko kraći. Pozdravljeni vsi, dobrodošli na 8. predavanju drugega cikla Bio-Balkan koleba Beauty in the Beasts. Danes smo tukaj iz organizacijskega tima Milica, Lejla, Edi pa jaz, Stina. Predavatelji bodo zaradi jezične barijere predavali v angleščini, tako da bomo v angleščini nadaljevali tudi mi. In ker so z nami danes 3 predavatelji, bo uvod nekoliko krajši. Today we have 3 lecturers, Nika Šabedera from Slovenia, Dr. Dragana Šnjegota from Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Dr. Melovskog from Macedonia. First we will hear from Dr. Melovskog. Feel free to write the questions in the chat during the lecture, as we will read them at the end of each sequence. When this part is finished, we will move on to the next lecturer, which be Dragana. So first we hear from Dr. Melovskog. He is a wildlife biologist whose main interests are butterfly phonistics and large mammal ecological research. He has dedicated his whole professional life in the Balkan Links Recovery Program. He has also contributed to monitoring and research of other mammals, and most notably the brown bear, golden jackal, and to a lesser extent that he would want, the gray wolf. Today he will tell us about the theme, recovery of the Balkan links from pen and paper to whole genome sequencing. Izvolite.
Thank you very much for this kind introduction. So I'm trying now to share my screen. Do you all see it?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. How about now?
Yep, now it's good.
Okay. Great. So yeah, I'm a wildlife biologist. I'm working in the Macedonian Ecological Society. That's my home organization. And our society is one of the oldest ecological society in the region, 50 plus year. And we usually work on projects that are connected to nature protection, but mostly biodiversity protection. And when this project came to be in 2006, it was immediately, we were immediately called at MES, and we were offered the position to lead the project activities within Macedonia. But I'm going to tell you more about it. It's really almost 20 years now with this Balkan Links Recovery Program, and there is a lot to say. But I will try to be, well, not quick, but at least concise in a way that you will be able to understand what kind of program it is and what kind of approach we have in order to save the Balkan links from extinction. So let me first just drop this slide in order to familiarize you with the genus lynx. So there are 4 lynx species in the world. There's Canada lynx that lives in the North and North America. Then the bobcat in the southern parts, mostly United States and Mexico. Then we have what was 20 years ago the most endangered cat in the world, the Iberian lynx, but now they're doing really, really good. They are now trying to connect these 2 remnant population, and more than 2,000 lynx roam free in Andalusia mostly, but also in southern Portugal. And of course, the Eurasian lynx that I'm going to talk about in this presentation, which has one of the widest east-west distribution ranges of all cat species in the world, stretching from France in the west until Kamchatka in Russia in the far east. Really, really huge stretch. It's a least concerned species according to the IUCN, but mostly because this Siberian subspecies and population that are stretching all the way to the Far East are really not really threatened by any modern day threats. that I will also talk about. So zooming in a little bit more in Europe, you have all these links, Eurasian links distribution in the European countries, and you can see that everything that is here depicted in this triangle is basically reintroductions that took place from the 1970s onwards. They are still present to this day. The reintroduction in the 70s and 80s were mostly done by hunters because they wanted to bring back this apex predator in order to deal with the ever increasing number of deer, especially roe deer and red deer. And the reason why large carnivores have this huge comeback in Europe is mostly because their main prey, the ungulates, red deer and roe deer, started coming back first and made a way for the large carnivores to also thrive in this highly anthropogenic landscape that is Western and Central Europe. So the Balkan lynx population is one of the three autochthonous populations in Europe. You see the northern part, Scandinavia, this is the northern lynx, and then in the Carpathian Mountains from Slovakia until Serbia, we have the Carpathian population, and this really tiny population, mostly stretching between Albania and Macedonia, is called the Balkan lynx, which is the most endangered autochthonous population, numbering from 20 to 40 mature individuals. It's really critically endangered. A little bit of history. This is how the population looked like in 2012, but this is the historic distribution of the Balkan lynx. You can see in the beginning of the 19th century, the Balkan lynx distribution was apparently throughout the whole Balkan Peninsula, except maybe for the lowlands in the northern part, bordering the Danube River that you can see here on the screen uh, with the blue line. And then already starting in the 20th century, the population was scattered, mostly in the Southwest Balkans, but also there were some remnants in Slovenia and Croatia, where the Denaric population was reintroduced in 1973, but also in some parts in Bulgaria. What you can see now in red color, in the red polygon, is what we today consider the distribution range of the Balkan lynx. Unfortunately, we think that the population is still not really connected, especially this Prokletia part between Montenegro, Kosovo, and Albania. But also there is this small nucleus that our colleagues from Albania have discovered in southeast Albania, that we're still trying to figure out whether it is connected to this main patch of distribution between Macedonia and Albania. So the most frequent question that people ask me is how many lynx there are, and we've tried to count them with my colleagues. So these 14 individuals that are in Mavrovo National Park, which is considered to be the core of the population, is one of the most important nucleus of the Balkan lynx. But now we have the Shara Mountain. For those of you who are familiar with the Balkan lynx mountain ranges, we think that there are couple of links maybe, and then there is 7, which is just east from Mavro, but it is of course the same population, 3 or 4 in this eastern or central Macedonian mountains, this protected area Jasan called. And then we have this one link on Galičica National Park between Ohrid and Prespa Lake, 3 to 4 in this Polis Valamara in Albania, 2 to 3 in Jablanica Šebenik National Park, 2 to 3 in the Monela protected area, and 1 to 2. Hopefully, we are wrong about this in Prokletia, because Prokletia are really huge mountain massive, and we think that we might have omitted certain individuals, but we at least know for a couple of individuals that live mostly in the Kosovo bit of Prokletia mountain, and our Albanian colleagues have managed to also photograph one in the Albanian part of Prokletia. Unfortunately, despite all the efforts that our colleagues from Montenegro, from the NGO called CZIP, for 5 years they've been trying to photograph camera trap lynx in Prokletia in Montenegro, but there was no success, unfortunately. So in total, there are almost 40 lynx, 35 to 39 is this count, that we know for sure that they exist. But these are all mature individuals, so we don't really count juveniles because they have around 50% chance to survive to adulthood. And yeah, so why is this not working? Uh-huh. So we have tried to list the main threats, and uh, we actually group the threats into the deterministic threats, which are really the threats that have devastated the population till present, which are poaching. Obviously, every individual counts when it comes to such a fragmented and small population. Poor law enforcement in the country. This is probably also known in your own countries that this is really the case, and habitat fragmentation and distraction. Developing countries, especially the ones that are not in the EU now, we have what, 6 or 7 countries in Southwestern Balkans. They really try to compete with the European countries. They don't really care all that much about nature, and they really want to rapidly increase their production, and with that really destroy nature at unprecedented levels. So this is a graph showing you some of the mortalities that we try to detect until the year 2020. And you can see that illegal killing is by far the biggest threat, some traffic mortality, but because of the until now not so developed road network, this is luckily not the case. One individual with disease and some other unknown reasons. And then we have this stochastic threats, which is mostly the small effective population size of the Balkan lynx. We have done this genetic research 2 or 3 years ago, and we have calculated that only 11 Balkan lynx are contributing towards the effective population size of the Balkan lynx. Only 11 are actually reproducing out of this 30, 40, which is like something like a quarter of the population. And this is, of course, leads to inbreeding. And because it's such a tiny population, that can lead to inbreeding depression, which will have detrimental effects on this low and small isolated population. So yeah, the poaching. I show you some slides that our colleagues from Albania have took from a restaurant. This link, this spotted link that you can see on your right side, right screen, on the right side of the screen, is an individual that our colleagues have managed to camera trap a few years before the individual got shot, which is really unfortunate to find it in a restaurant, an individual that you have actually monitored and you have actually it's sort of speaking track, and then you find this individual in a restaurant. You know that links are easily detectable, at least with the large spotted links are easily detectable because each individual has a different code pattern, and this can be really seen in the code pattern of the links, and you can really see that it is the same individual. And also, in the restaurants, you find some of the Balkan links which are illegally kept. This is the case with these links in Shkodra mountain, in Shkodra region, and our colleagues have put a lot of effort to take these links away to show that this is not the way it's supposed to be, and they took it in Tirana Zoo, but the individual died a few years afterwards. So all these threats rendered the beginning of the Balkan Links Recovery Program, which is a project that has stretched from 2006 until the present day. These are the first 6 phases of the project, and all the partners in the project, mostly from 3 different countries: Macedonia, Albania, and Kosovo. CZIP and another NGO from Kosovo and from Norway were our partners until the first phases in the project, but not anymore. And the first 6 phases of the project were actually addressing these first deterministic threats. So we had nothing to do with genetics. We only were looking into this poaching and habitat fragmentation and prey depletion. So the pillars of the conservation that are really put now into our project is the species protection. We do a lot of species monitoring and research. Habitat protection, we try to uh, foster our governments to proclaim new protected areas that are relevant for the lynx and other species. And of course, the human dimension approach that we have in our conversation, trying to work mostly with hunters and game wardens from these protected areas, trying to teach them and have them as assets in monitoring, because these small teams of maybe 10 people is really not enough to do all this by ourselves. So we started with a pen and paper. This is part of my title of this presentation. We started with really basic, with questionnaires. We went in the rural settlements, in the rural lands, in the rural villages in Macedonia, Albania, and Kosovo and Montenegro afterwards, and tried to find all the relevant people, mostly hunters, game wardens, foresters, livestock breeders, and ask them what they think, not only about lynx, but also about the prey species, about other large carnivores such as bear and wolf, and try to find out what people think about the trend of the population, about the husbandry details, like maybe there are some damages and stuff like that. And you can see that already people were started pointing out that this western part of Macedonia, Mavro National Park, is the place to go if we want to find the Balkan lynx. The darker these 10 by 10 kilometer squares are, the more chances there are to find the Balkan lynx. In Albania, the situation wasn't like that. You can see that most of these squares are kind of like scattered from north to south. But in Macedonia, it was really obvious that Mavro is the place to go. So we started with camera trapping, which was and we started in Mavro. So far, we have 7 intensive sessions, and with this intensive session, by doing capture, turnover rate, and relative abundance index estimates, we try to see how many links there are and what is their density inside these protected areas and its vicinity. And you can see here the density estimates throughout the years, these 7 sessions that started in 2008 and 10. And last year it was our last camera trapping session. You can see how many links there are per 100 square kilometers. So this is the density of the links. And you can see that the numbers fluctuate. In 2015, we had the highest estimate of 2 individuals in 100 square kilometers. Now it's 1.2. I wouldn't really take the first 2 sessions, 2008 and 2010, very seriously, simply because we were back then working with these analog cameras with films. So it was really a different technique, much less photographs. We were really learning about the method. We didn't really know all the sides. But if you take 2013 as our first session up until 2023, this stretch of 10 years, you can see that the average population density is around 1.3, 1.4 individuals per 100 square kilometer, which is approximately the average what we have also in Central Europe. And then we asked the people in 2009 what they think about the bear, wolf, and lynx only, which was a human dimension survey that we did. And you can see that 50% of the people are in favor of the links, around quarter are neutral, and the other quarter are either against or completely against having the links, which can also be attributed to the fear of the people of the unknown. And this is a study that we also have published. That people are not really familiar with the links, and that they also fear the links, and that's why they were probably against. But the main takeaway from the study that we published a couple of years ago is that if we want to conserve this large carnivore, if we want to um, address them with a different kind of activities and actions, we have to take them apart. We cannot really put them together. We cannot clump them together, although they are all large carnivores, because the attitude towards bear, wolf, and lynx are different in people's view. And then we worked on protected area proclamation. we wanted to see more that it was already protected when we started the project in 2006. And our colleagues in Albania managed to that deserves protection. This is the circled area there in the border with Macedonia. Then Koritnica Nature Park in 2011. Planina was our fourth national park after 60 years of not having a new national park. This was it in 2021. We're really happy to see that proclaimed. Albanian Alps in 2022, which was a enlargement of the already tiny protected areas that were there, Valbona and Teti. So this is all thanks to the project Munela, of course. I forgot Munela in 2022, which was another nucleus where we think that there is reproduction going on in Albania. And then we started with a radio telemetry study. We tried to capture Eurasian link, Balkan links, and try to see what are their spatial and social organization, their habitat preferences, and their predation. Of course, with this method, you can also see demographics, distribution, and health and genetic status, but we are mostly, to start off, interested in these first three. We wanted to see what are their territory like, what is the size of their territory, what do they prefer as a habitat, and what is their main prey. And we started capturing in 2010. So far, we have captured 14 Balkan lynx, 8 males and 6 females, in all of them in Macedonia. Unfortunately, none was captured in Albania so far, but our colleagues will try this year or at the end of this year again. This, for instance, is Distri, one of these largest males that we caught, 27 kilos in Mavro National Park. And he was kind enough to actually pose in front of this camera trap just by accident. And we had a series of really, really nice photos from him. And you can see some of this spatial distribution of some of these links from 2010, 2011. You can see Marco M01, our first Balkan lynx that was caught in 2010, and some of these other males that were caught. You can see that their territories are pretty big. Half of the park is occupied by one single male, and the overlap of the territory between same gender links is negligible, really. It's sometimes 10-15%, but they don't like to share their territory with the same gender individual. And this F01 is our first female that we caught just outside Mauro, and you can see that she has a much smaller territory. And then when we were tracking down the links, sometimes, not sometimes, but very often, they would actually cluster like that, and this was an indication that they will have a kill. And we were really tedious to go and search for every kill, at least in the first years, and try to be really consistent with searching the kill. Sometimes we wouldn't find anything. Sometimes we just scavenged by other animals such as wild boars or bears. But very often we would find a kill, and then we did all sorts of analysis about not only what is their main prey, which is the roe deer, but also how many roe deer or how many ungulates they kill per year, which is 36 on average for males and 33 for females. And what is their search time, for instance, how much they search between the two kills, between the last actually the feeding of their last kill with the new kill. And this proved to be a week or something like that, which is longer search time than their counterparts in Central and Western Europe, and their lower ungulates killed per year compared to other lynx that live in Europe. So this was our first estimate of the home ranges and the foraging ecology. We concluded that this is a similar land tenure system as in Central Europe, but their kill rate is lower compared to the other EU population, which could be because of the lower population density of ungulates, and this implies better management, which means that they would rely on smaller prey. And this is all published in 2020, and the reliance of the smaller prey is actually brown hare. And all this knowledge have actually been used to, for the first time, assess the IUCN Red List status of the Balkan lynx in 2015. and we concluded that this is a critically endangered subspecies. This was assessed in November 2015, and this year we are making another assessment, which will be published early next year. But not only we are reassessing the IUCN status of the Balkan lynx, we are going to also assess the green status of species recovery, which is something relatively novel. It's been around for 3 or 4 years already. It is also part of the IUCN Red List assessment, but it actually looks into the recovery potential of a certain taxon. It could be species or a subspecies, but it's something that is a little bit different that the Red List assessment offers. Also, we use this to propose the Balkan lynx to be uplisted in the Appendix 2 instead of Appendix 3 of the Balkan lynx convention, and we succeeded this in November 2017. Our team, which is part of our policy, our international policy, but also this year we managed to put the Balkan lynx into the Appendix 1, which is the top protection in the Convention for Migratory Species. This is the Bonn Convention, which was a great success of the team to yet have another layer of protection in the international legislation, and this is the Bonn Convention. We managed to put the Eurasian lynx in the Appendix 2 and the Balkan lynx as a subspecies in the Appendix 1 of this convention. Yeah, so this is now the seventh. We are now in the seventh phase of the Balkan lynx recovery program. The partners are our Macedonian Ecological Society, I mean the society where I work, Protection Preservation of Natural Environment Albania, our colleagues from Tirana, then ERA from Peć from Kosovo, and our supervision from Euronature Germany and THORA in Switzerland. And we are now trying to address these stochastic threats that I was talking about earlier: the small effective population size, the low genomic diversity, and the inbreeding depression. And the reason to do that is because already there were certain papers that were pointing out that the Balkan lynx is heavily inbred, especially this paper that came out in the 2021 that was actually looking into the history, demography, and genetic status of the Balkan and Caucasian population. And it was also concluded in this paper that uh, if we are to augment the population or to reinforce the population, that the Carpathian lynx would be the main candidate. The reason why we started looking at that is because in 2021 we had an all-time low of individuals, not only in Kosovo but also in Albania. Remember this graph? You can see only a smidge above one lynx per 100 square kilometers, which is really a red light for us to search for a certain solution. And why is that so? But also, the 4 females that we had under radio collars, only one gave birth that year. So it was really a red light. Why is this happening? And then we started looking into what would be the perfect candidate for reinforcement of the Balkan lynx, whether the Carpathian lynx or the Caucasian lynx, because these are the 2 neighboring population of the Balkan lynx. And during the last glaciation, Asia Minor and the Balkans were connected with a land bridge because the sea level was much lower, and all this was actually now what is nowadays Istanbul. This was all a land bridge, so that not all the species actually, not only mammals but also other terrestrial species were able to go from one peninsula to another. And we think that this is how the Balkan lynx came to be. Actually, it's a descendant of this Caucasian population, which was also proven by genetics. But if we take ecology into account, what is seen here, we think that the Carpathian population is more suitable on the basis of prey preference, habitat preference, and also the prey availability in the Balkans compared to the Anatolian part. And this is one of the clusters that we did, showing the habitat and the prey preference of the Balkan lynx. And few more slides. we started to look into the genetic monitoring and reinforcement, which is our future steps. We wanted to have both invasive and non-invasive samples, urine taken in the snow for non-invasive monitoring, genetic monitoring, and blood for genomic analysis, the whole genome sequence, which is what we are doing right now. We want to assess the genetic load and purging to infer the inbreeding depression of the Balkan lynx and calculate status, so inbreeding and diversity of the Balkan lynx. And last but not least, create a SNP marker for genetic monitoring. And we have a student who is doing this. My colleague Andrei Gone from Macedonian Ecological Society is currently in his last semester of his master thesis, which he is dedicating to this study in Sevilla, in Andalusia, with a team of expert geneticists who were working on the Iberian lynx genetics and who are actually working on Iberian lynx genetics to this date. And he is in one of this most really equipped and well-established laboratory in Sevilla, in the Institute of Research in Doñana. And this is my last slide. It's about, of course, the money. It's about how we are able to pull this off. 18 years and counting with the Balkan Lynx Recovery Program. It's because of the generous sponsorship of the MAVA Foundation, which is now not really funding anything as it pertains to nature protection. It switched to something else starting 2022, but until 2022, all our funding came from MAVA Foundation and some smaller funding from other sources like DBU, UNDP, and this Scopes project. So yeah, thank you very much for yeah, just in time before kids started nagging, and yeah, I mean that's the presentation. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for the interesting presentation. And now I will read the questions presented by, written by our participants. So first question is, if any genetic research was conducted, was there significant difference between clusters of lynx?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. So if any genetic research was conducted, was there significant difference between clusters of lynx?
I don't understand which clusters do you mean, like clusters of how they genetically differentiate between other populations, or what kind of clusters do you, whoever asked the question can maybe yeah, explain a little bit more. What kind of clusters do you mean?
Okay, so while they write that, the next question is, what do you think about mixing the Dinaric and Balkan population?
Yeah, that's a good question. Dinaric population is already genetically eroded and depleted population, and there has been a huge life project that ended last year in September that tried to reinforce the population. So 18 new Carpathian lynx from Romania and from Slovakia were brought to this population, mostly in Slovenia and Croatia. Some of them were actually trying to connect the alpine population, and so in the Slovenian Alps, and some of them in this Dinaric region. But the main reason why we are not considering right now the Dinaric population is simply because it's still quite eroded at this point. We still need to wait a couple of more generations for this newly brought individuals to start reproducing and bring new individuals that will not have this kind of problem of inbreeding before we start considering. But also it is about the population that is still trying to kickstart in a way to start increasing, because the generic population started really decreasing in the last 10 years simply because of this inbreeding problem, and we are still not now considering denaric population, but maybe in the future we will, and especially because now the spread of the denaric population has come to the Bosnian-Montenegrin border in Volujak Mountain. This is already proved that they have reached. So maybe even naturally, the spread of this denaric population will actually merge with the Balkan Links population that is in between now Montenegrin and Albanian and Kosovo border. So it's mostly Montenegro that is in the way between these two populations to merge, or maybe it is even closer than that. We're not now really sure whether there are any individuals from both the Denaric or Balkan population in Montenegro right now.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, I was wondering if you could repeat the main milestones of the project and what do you expect in the future in regards to conservation of links on the Balkan Peninsula?
Okay, the main milestones are several folded, let's say, but because there are three pillars of conservation: species protection, habitat protection, and human dimension, there are certain milestones in all these of the three pillars. With the species protection, we started with these questionnaires, but then we set off with camera trapping, and we are now within 7 intensive session, and then radio telemetry with 14 captured individuals. With the protected areas, we have established 5 new protected areas, and with that, we really enlarged the protection of the habitat of the Balkan lynx in Southwest Balkan. And with the human dimension, we have now the second human dimension study was done, but still not analyzed, in order to compare these two same studies 15 years ago and now, and see what kind of thinking and opinion and what kind of perception the people have 15 years ago and now. And yeah, I mean, the future of the Balkan links is basically the reinforcement and trying to see whether this can actually translate into increase of the population. And you know, Greece is really offers a really good habitat in the Pindos Mountains that can host a lot of new individuals. And we are really expecting that this Balkan lynx population will start expanding and consequently merge with the Denaric population to form one big meta population.
Thank you. Next question is any ethological behavior data getting collected during this project?
Unfortunately not. This will be really, really interesting to see. But unfortunately, we have never set any research and never set any research question that deals with ethology until now. But we are open for suggestions. And of course, if we find the funds, we can see whether this can also help the Balkan links. But no, the answer is no.
Okay, thank you. And now back to the first question that was asked. So if any genetic research was conducted, was there significant difference between clusters of links? The clusters are meant on the geographical clusters that were presented on the first few slides.
No. I mean, our studies were twofolded. First study was done, or actually three. First study was done with the museum specimens back in 2008, and these are all specimens that were killed and displayed in the museums in the 50s, in the 60s, you know. And new haplotypes were found that were really unique for the Balkan lynx. But all these haplotypes were also found in the newest studies that we are doing now. 3 or 4 years ago, 3 years ago, and now the study that is not really published, that this is now ongoing. So this population was always small. It was like 500 or maybe 1,000 generations ago. It was always consisted of less than 200 individuals, which is also a coping mechanism that cats have to fight in breeding in a way. And this kind of, I'm not geneticist myself, but this is what I read and what I talk to geneticists and to people who are more into this topic. But populations that are small have much more coping mechanism with the so-called purging to actually get rid of deleterious alleles and actually try not try, but actually don't get extinct in a way because of inbreeding depression. But the inbreeding depression can certainly affect, for instance, the reproductive potential of the Balkan lynx, and this is why we are really worried, because in the last years we don't really see a lot of new individuals, you know, and the lynx that, I mean, the females that do get birth, it's usually one, not so often two kittens, and you know, we should expect more, you know, and we should expect reproduction at least every year, not at least, but every year.
Okay, thank you. And last question by the organizational team is, how can biology students or students that are interested in doing this research help you with the project?
You can spread the word. That's at least that you can do. You can join the Balkan Links Facebook page, and you can see all the novelties there that are going on. You can share those things, and you can invite people to follow. When what matters most is when we are at certain points where we need to persuade governments to act. We want the people to also be aware and also pressure the governments if they act strangely, if they don't want to accept certain activities that are supposed to be taken care of in certain time slots. And we want all the people, especially biology students, especially people who care about nature, to be aware of what the situation is, to spread the word, to raise the awareness of the Balkan lynx protection, and to always have it in their mind. We usually invite 1 to 2 people per tutoring session to join us in the field to learn more. Maybe some of them are part of their master thesis or bachelor studies that can help in the field and have fun and see where we do our work. Sometimes when we capture links, they also get to also handle the links and handle the whole procedure, which is really exciting. And and I think that you can apply. I mean, we usually have room for 1 to 2 interns, and interns also play a big role in helping how this whole project is unfolding.
Thank you. If there are no more questions, I would leave the floor to our next lecturer, Dr. Dragana Šnjegote.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I apologize. I'm in the field. I didn't plan that, so I hope we will manage to finish everything. Just a second. Do you see my presentation? So first of all, I'd like to thanks for your invitation. It's really always a pleasure to give presentation to students. And it's really nice to see so many. I don't know if all of you are students, but anyway, it's nice to see you. It's Saturday, and it's really nice to see how many of you came here to hear our presentations. And I would love to congratulate Sudime for really nice presentation and for really great results. Today I will talk on population genetic studies of Canis genus in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I will just shortly show you all our results and what we actually did, and most of my results are actually based on genetic studies, but I didn't go too in details because I don't know the background of all of you, but if you have any questions, just feel free to ask me. So I'm on behalf of the Faculty of Natural Sciences and Mathematics in Banja Luka, and I'm also CEO of Center for Biodiversity Research. That is one NGO which we created recently, and now we hope to go with serious projects. So today I will tell you a little bit on population genetic studies of wolves, of jackals, the very first information of hybridization in the Canis genus and their range of, which is really the hot topic in conservation today, and I will show you what we are doing in the field. So first of all, we are all from the Balkans, and I know that all of you know where Bosnia Herzegovina is. But with this first slide, I wanted just to show you the species richness and why it is really important to study biodiversity, not just in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but through entire Balkan. Because the species richness, as you can see here, these are terrestrial species, is really high. And when we see their treatment, we can see that in Bosnia, it's also very, very high. So it's the final time, let's say, to study biodiversity in Bosnia properly. I will start on wolves. So wolves from Bosnia and Herzegovina belong to the large dynamic Balkan wolf population. This is here in violet, if you can see. And some previous studies before I started my studies with my colleagues, like studies from John et al. From 14, sorry, or Stroin et al. From 2013, showed that there is west-east differentiation in population genetic structure. And we actually wanted to understand what is the main cause of that differentiation, and did maybe discontinuity or low number of samples showed the false results. So we actually, after those studies, we started to properly study wolves in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and then on wider region. And these are very first results which we got by analyzing mitochondrial DNA. These are actually haplotypes, where we, for the first time, included samples from Bosnia and a larger set of samples from Serbia. I guess you can see my cursor. Here is Bosnia, and also here is Bosnia. What we actually found, there is really a high difference between wolves from Bosnia, which you can see here, and, for example, Serbia. We didn't expect that because there is no geographic barrier which could explain that. But what we found is that wolves from Serbia, Croatia, and Slovenia are much closer compared to other part of the generic Balkan population. And you can see the distribution of population here is from Slovenia in the west through all these countries to Greece in south. The same results, previous studies from John and from Stroin et al. Actually produced the same results. So now we got actually the same. We saw the differentiation in haplotype distribution and frequency. But mitochondrial DNA is not really good and adequate marker for studying genetic differentiation. So we actually had to include other molecular markers and to properly see the situation. So we conducted the other studies by including microsatellites, and we published them in some really few really nice and really impactful papers. You can see all of them here, and I will just briefly zoom in each of these. First results we published was in conservation genetics on we had this distribution of our samples. We had samples from entire Bosnia except the lone north, where wolves never actually were presented. And what we found by analyzing 18 microsatellite loci, we found actually differentiation, which you can see on this left map. You can see here a few white dots. Those are wolves which are completely different from the other wolves from Bosnia and Herzegovina. And we couldn't explain that because there is no some geographic barrier which would actually prevent the mixing of these individuals. And we additionally did the relatedness analysis, and we realized that all wolves are actually mixing properly. There is one panmixtion which we actually expected. So we decided to, we actually thought that this is the reflection of structuring on a wider region, and we expanded our actually sample and sample sites. So we included Slovenia and Croatia and Serbia in the next study. You can see the distribution of samples on this map. So we had 255 wolves, 16 microsatellites. And this study was done at the biotechnical faculty in Ljubljana in Slovenia with my colleagues. I was there and I was working with Tomasz and Astrid, and what we found actually confirmed the same results. So we saw actually differentiation in the west-east gradient. where actually we can see that Bosnia and Herzegovina is like central area where we have some differentiation, or actually wolves are joining and mixing again into one big population under assumption that there was bottleneck which reduced population in this region, and what actually separated wolves in the past, let's say. What we also found, and is really interesting in this paper, is one direction migration of wolves from Serbia or from the east part of the large Dinaric Balkan population to the west, and there wasn't actually any migration in the opposite, which is quite interesting, and we are trying to understand why is that happening. At the same time, when we started with the first study, which results we published in Conservation Genetics, we started the additional study also on mitochondrial DNA in Mammal Research Institute at the Polish Academy Science Bielowieża, Poland, where we included 533 new wolf samples, and we downloaded sequences from GeneBank. Our entire set was 926 wolves, where we wanted to understand again if there is really a difference in frequency in haplotype distribution. And you can see actually here how big, how large area of sampling we had. We included three really important biogeographical regions: Carpathians, Caucasus, and the Balkans. And this here is Bosnia and Herzegovina, and you will see actually that we have the same results again like we had in the previous, in all our later actually studies. So we found again differentiation on entire Eurasian, let's say, level. So for the first time, for example, we found here differentiation in the Caucasus between wolves from Georgia and Armenia. And also what we found here, we confirmed that a part of wolves from Bosnia and Herzegovina clustered together with those from Croatia and from Slovenia. There is just one part from the east of Bosnia and Herzegovina clustered together with all other European wolves. And what we found also, which is really interesting, is that at the level of the east part of the Dinaric Balkan population and the Carpathians population, we don't see any structure. We have to be cautious with this because we are using mitochondrial DNA here, but also my previous colleague actually knows it better, that I think there is a natural recolonization of all this entire space by lynx. Now lynx are from Carpathians just coming naturally into the Balkans, so it might be a case with wolves, because wolves are now expanding and recolonizing areas from where they were actually eradicated totally. Here you can see better distribution of haplotypes. We were particularly interested for the Dinaric Balkan population, and for example here you can see that the east part of the Dinaric Balkan region, and we call it like Balkan cluster, has different haplotype distribution, like you can see here, or for example here, or here, and in this last photo from the wolves from Bosnia and from Slovenia and Croatia, which we called actually the west, the Dinaric or west part of the Dinaric Balkan population. So there is definitely total differentiation of haplotype distribution in the large Dinaric Balkan population, and with our ongoing study, which I will tell you more a little bit later. Actually, we are trying to understand if there is a natural selection which is actually creating such differentiation. We talk on Canis genus, and when we talk on population genetic studies of wolves, we cannot separate jackals anymore, because you know that jackals are currently expanding and colonizing entire Europe. We now even have reproductive packs in Scandinavia, which was really, which we couldn't imagine just a few years ago. Climate changes are actually, and anthropogenic activities are totally creating space for them and giving them opportunity to spread to the north. So we, besides wolves, we actually initiated population genetic studies of jackals as well, and we published. Just to tell you briefly about the position of jackals in Bosnia. Spasov and Da Costa Pankov on 2019 published a really great publication where they showed actually that this is assumption that in Bosnia we have two different gene pools of jackals. At the north of Bosnia, we have actually the largest, let's say, jackal population, which is now spreading, as you can see, through entire Europe. And in the southern area of Bosnia and Herzegovina, we have actually Dalmatian cluster. The jackals from Dalmatia actually are quite different, and they are now spreading to the west of Europe. So we, by knowing all of that, we initiated population genetic studies, and we published them results on last year, in a journal Mammalian Research. We included 48 jackals, and we analyzed 24 microsatellites, and you can see the distribution of samples. That's at the north of Bosnia, which is considered as a hotspot of their distribution because those areas are completely occupied by humans, and we know that jackals like humans. They are kleptoparasites. They use just humans to live better. And this population here is actually formed by jackals from the continental Croatia, from this direction, and from the east, from jackals from Serbia. So they are just mixing here, and our results are such that we actually didn't find any population structure. We expect that there is differentiation between jackals in this region of Bosnia and here, but we need to enlarge sample to know it properly. The further research, which we actually are just conducting right now, is the studies on hybridization, possible hybridization in Canis genus in Bosnia. We know that jackals and wolves are expanding their territory. They are getting closer and closer. They are getting much more in touch, connected than they were previous, which actually increases the possibility for hybridization. Also, the southern Europe is well known by presence of wild dogs, stray dogs, which is quite common for Bosnia because we have stray dogs, wild dogs, just in mountainous areas and also in lowlands. So they are totally in contact with jackals and with wolves as well. And we received photos, as you can see now on screen, where we actually thought that they might present hybrids. For this here, a wolf, which is actually individual, which has lighter fur than it is usual in wolves from Bosnia, we actually we saw that is individual that is mixing with wolves from Dalmatia, from Croatia, and wolves in Dalmatia actually are with lighter fur. So this is just one wolf which has a morphology similar to Dalmatian wolves. But this left here, it is one hybrid between dog and wolf, and we actually confirmed that by analyzing 15,000 SNPs, around 15,000 SNPs, and results are currently in publication. We have also more hybrids that we detected, but we will publish that, I hope, this year, and it will be available actually for showing and for presenting. We don't have that amount of hybridization, percentage of hybridization that we thought, but actually we noticed some signs of hybrids. This is one study talking about hybridization. This is publication. This was done by my student from France. He was last year 2 months spending at my department. We were working on microsatellite analysis just to understand if there is hybridization in Canis genus. Besides dogs and jackals, we included also dogs. We collected saliva from dogs. We did analysis together at the Faculty of Sciences. And in totally, we analyzed 131 individuals, which included 13 dogs, 48 jackals, and 70 wolves. And we actually found signs of one hybrid, one properly hybrid. This is one here individual. You can see, for example, that individual here, and also you can see that individual over here. So these different colors actually mean that they have some alleles from one species and some alleles from the other species, and that one individual is probably a hybrid, and this one probably also is hybrid between dogs and wolves, but we still have to confirm that. We also for the first time, analyzed range overlap between wolves and jackals. Again, these results are included in publication by my student Louis. We also, you can see here the distribution of Canis lupus, these green areas, which are actually totally mountainous areas. And here you can see the hotspot of the jackals distribution. And you can see here that they are getting now deeper in Bosnia and Herzegovina, these green lines, which wasn't actually before. And here also we have them in southern area. When we did overlapping of their range by AHP method, we actually saw the range overlap mainly at the periphery of both species distribution, but also unexpected here in eastern Bosnia, which is mountainous. We saw actually totally overlapping in their range, and also here in one specific area around the town Mostar. We also had the possibility to read papers about the attack of jackals on sheep or some other animals, but now we actually see that those probably were jackals because of the range overlap. And also we are in the field. We are as much as possible in the field. I have to say that all our field activities have been supported by Rafford Foundation UK. We completed 4 Rafford grants. We are now waiting for results of the 5th final. The main activities are setting photo traps to see the presence of wolves, now jackals, and stray dogs as well. We use drones as well to see the patterns and the signs of presence of any of the species. We conduct questionnaires where we conclude on people's opinion on the presence of all species, and we also learn from people if species are presented in their places, local communities. Actually, I think we are using citizen science properly now, and we are constantly conducting non-formal educations. You can see some just a few photos from the field. We are conducting non-formal educations as well constantly with school people, with older people, with students, with just regular people in local communities, because all of them can help a lot. Just to tell us, we saw jackal, we saw wolf, we saw bear or whatever, and it means a lot to us. There is also one website where we constantly update with information, so you can find more information there. Soon we should have a new website which will be connected with our SIB organization. I also constantly attend and visit different conferences. Here I just wanted to show a few conferences which were really important for us, where we presented our results and made collaboration with other scientists who are working on similar things, and now that resulted in analysis of SNPs, where we actually want to understand if there is natural selection which differentiate dynamic Balkan population. Those results should be published, I hope so, in the end of this year or the beginning of the next year. So we will have also now then the all results possible which we actually could make to see the real state actually of the dynamic Balkan population. Besides wolves, jackals, and stray dogs, I would like just briefly to mention that we are doing monitoring of the European wildcat, not lynx, but the European wildcat. We had one project where we managed to record presence of few individuals. We managed to collect some samples for genetic analysis, and now we are already in process of genetic analysis, and hopefully we will soon have information on the state of the species, because we think that the European wild cat is the autochthon species. We will see that, and we will have the first data on its phylogeography position. And also we will try to understand if there is hybridization with domestic cats. And this is one photo from the field where we managed to capture the presence of bears and wolves at the same location, which shows actually the coexistence of large carnivores successful. We actually recorded them several times. Now we are in process of publishing these results, because we are witnessing that due to the expansion of wolves everywhere in Europe, large carnivores are getting closer to each other, and they are just trying to find a way to collaborate and to coexist together. So that's it. I was short, and I hope you could hear me because I'm outside. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you for your presentation. And now we will read the questions. First question is, I wanted to ask if you have any speculations as to the cause of the unilateral east-to-west migration of the Dinaric wolf population from Serbia towards Slovenia. Perhaps the wolves heard about the benefits the EU offers to jackals and wanted an easier life for their own cubs. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yeah, that's exactly what we said. There is a better life in the, West Europe. So wolves are just, migrating, following people. And we actually just joked that we will put it as a conclusion in our paper, but of course it's just a joke. No, we don't have, but we found a high percentage of hybridization in Serbian wolves. So there is a high percentage of hybridization between dogs and wolves in Serbia. We didn't publish it yet because we want to properly understand that, and that actually may be one reason why there is no, let's say, migration of wolves from Bosnia to Serbia. Maybe they are just trying to avoid each other. The part of the border between Serbia and Bosnia is the river Drina, which is not the obstacle which wolves cannot cross, but those areas are really largely inhabited by humans, by people, and that may be one of reasons why actually they are just avoiding that area. Although wolves from Serbia are moving, we still don't know actually. But now we are trying to understand if there is some other factor from some ecological factor. That's what we are now doing, that are actually making such pattern of movement or differentiation. So I hope we will have results soon. But no, so far we don't have any explanation for that.
Thank you. Another question that was asked is, are the wolf-dog hybrids sterile?
No. Any combination, dog wolf, dog jackal, wolf jackal, they have the same number of chromosomes. They are just fertile. They produce fertile offspring. And the last year at one really great conference in Sweden, I had the opportunity to see that they are even now there is reproduction between hybrids and there is fertility. They are fertile offspring, so they are no sterile. They can produce F1, F2 offspring, and so on.
Thank you. Another question from the chat is, do you plan on exploring Y chromosome haplotypes?
We had plan. I was planning to do that with my colleagues in Poland. That is one option. We are still thinking to do it. So maybe yes.
Thank you. Another question from the organizational team is, regarding the domestic cat. Does the domesticated cat hunt the same prey / compete for the same niche as the wild cat?
Sorry, can you just, if I understood well, do you ask me if they are sharing the same niche or they are hunting in the same? Can you repeat?
Does the domesticated cat hunt the same prey / compete for the same niche as the wild cat?
Oh, well, yes and no. We are actually feeding domestic cats, more or less. And if they hunt around our houses or in the field close to our houses. Wild cats are not that close to our houses, so they are in areas where their range is close. They probably do, but wild cats are mostly deeper in forests, so they have the other prey. They are, I believe, still differentiated in that way.
Thank you. Another question is it possible that Serbian wolf population has adapted to more anthropogenic region of Šumadija, which is much less wild than most of Bosnia, and that was crucial that they can cross Drina and colonize North Bosnia?
Yeah, that's something actually that we want to understand. We will see if there is differentiation in some genes. We analyze wolves from Bosnia, Serbia, and Bulgaria, and we want to see if there are changes in some genes which might actually to lead to such differentiation. That's exactly what we plan to understand now. I believe that in these regions there is a lot of hybridization. So that also might be a reason, but we will see. And sorry, and just to say, north of Bosnia was never colonized by wolves, just because of too many people. They don't like people, and they never actually crossed those areas.
Okay, thank you. If there is no more questions by the audience, I would like to thank once again our Dr. Dragana Šnjegota and give the floor to our next lecturer, Nik Šabedera.
Thank you.
Hello. I'll start presenting now. Do you see the full screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So thank you for the introduction and congratulations on the two former very good presentation. I'll be presenting the topic of leopard research in Namibia, and maybe in a bit of a contrast by someone who is still doing research as a PhD student as opposed to established researchers that were presenting before me. So, and I would just like to start by mentioning who is involved in the research. It's by partners. It's a German-Slovenian collaboration. And it all started with the Cheetah Research Project led by Leibniz Institute for Zoo and Wildlife Research in Berlin, and followed by two projects that were led by our team, Intermoods and Extreme Predator, both sponsored by Slovenia Research Agency, formerly called ARRS, now called ARIS. And we are coming from the Department of Forestry of the Biotechnical Faculty, University of Ljubljana, where our project leader is Miha Krofel. And from the IZW, it's Jörg Melzheimer and Bettina. And a lot of collaboration goes on with the Awas Onob Conservancy, which is a conservancy of landowners and farmers in our research area in Namibia. And now I would just like to jump from the Balkan Peninsula to Africa and mention where Namibia is. So it's a big country located in southern Africa. And it's very big. It's 3.2 times bigger than the former country of Yugoslavia and 2 times the size of the whole of the Balkan Peninsula. And all that accounted, it has the population of only 2.5 million, which makes it one of the most sparsely populated countries in the world. And highlighted here is the research area that we do our research in. It's located on a highland just south of the capital city of Windhoek. And also overlapping with our research area is the area with the highest densities of leopards in Namibia, where we can expect between 2 and as well more than 3 leopards per 100 square kilometers. And I would like to show this map just to explain a bit the political and geopolitical and land ownership situation in Namibia. Highlighted in green, you can see all of the protected areas. They're very big and cover a lot of the area. In white, you can see communal conservancies, which is basically any land area owned by the government where humans or the population of Namibia can live and farm freely. And then in gray, in all the mosaics, all the area here, you can see the freehold farmland, which is basically privately owned farms. It's about 5,000 of them. They're all owned by former colonialists. And it's very important to understand this dimension of land ownership, because the law states that though the people who own the land can freely manage the land, which means that they can freely manage wildlife populations, both carnivores and prey species. And now just to explain a little bit who and what is a leopard. So leopards are large solitary cats, and they're very distinguishable between males and females for their sexual dimorphism, where males are much larger than females. IUCN classifies leopards as vulnerable species, and they live in sub-Saharan Africa, Indian subcontinents, other parts of Asia, and some small parts of Russia. And here you can see the former range of the species. It was much larger, and there's 2 factors. One is the human-wildlife conflict. They do sometimes prey on domestic prey, which makes them a target species for farmers, but also habitat destructions. Leopards are opportunistic predator, so they will prey on anything they feel like they can manage and take down. And also they are a sit and wait, almost ambush predator, and they don't really run after the prey as much as, for example, cheetah. And they have the characteristic rosettes, so the structures on their fur, which are individual for every individual leopard, and might help us differentiate them from, let's say, cheetahs, which only have dots, and jaguars, who have the rosettes and dots in the middle. And both males and females are territorial. And this territoriality can lead us to form interesting research questions. And to answer those research questions, first I'll explain briefly the research methods that we are using. So first, we want to capture the animals. And for that, we use box traps that are powered by solar energy. And they have a computer which powers and controls 2 lasers. So only when 2 lasers are broken does the trap close, which is a bit different than some box traps that we use, for example, in Slovenia for the lynx, that's completely mechanical. And after capturing them, we immobilize them and put collars on them. And all the animals, both leopards and some other large cats like cheetahs, get GPS collars, but we also collect many different samples. Samples ranging from blood, tissue, hair, saliva, other mucosal samples that are then used for ecophysiological research. And going back to territoriality, the first thing then we can look at when the animals are fitted with the GPS collars is the home ranging behavior. And very briefly, I can just say that the home range of 17 females that were collared within the all dimension project, the average estimated home range size is 78 square kilometers. And just for reference, here is the capital of Windhoek, and these are all the farms around. Where the smallest home range was 30 square kilometers and the largest was 120. In contrast to the males, where Their estimated home range sizes were 5 times bigger, with being 330 square kilometers in average, and the largest being 660. Okay, moving on to habitat preference. So now we looked at the large scale habitat, which is the home range, going to the micro scale habitat preferences, where we wanted to know where do leopards rest in a bush savanna. So we looked at the resting sites. As I mentioned, leopards are nocturnally active, which means that they rest during the day. And during the day is also when humans are most active. We selected the resting sites with the help of GPS fixes at 12 o'clock at noon. But that's not 100% that the leopard was resting at that moment. So we paired that with the accelerometer data, which is a device on the collar. And if the accelerometer said that the leopard was also stationary at that time, we presume that was a resting site. So in the field, we then monitored 392 resting sites and random points. And I'll explain why random points also further down. So on all of the sites, we gather data on 30 environmental features, ranging from topography, orientation direction, canopy cover, vertical cover, special features like hillsides, slopes, presence of cliffs, riverbeds, the type of ground, whether it was sandy, rocky, gravelly, the ruggedness, which means how much exposed rock was there in the certain area, and local visibility, long distance view, presence and distance to human infrastructure, and presence and distance to water holes. And for modeling and for analysis, we used a use availability study design by employing GLMMs, or generalized linear mix effect models. And the use points, the first part, is the actual resting sites, and the available points were all the random points that we also sampled. And based on our knowledge of the ecology of the animals and the biology of the animals, we then formed hypotheses. And we then tested them with the help of models. And some of the hypotheses were, for example, does visibility affect resting site selection? Does human infrastructure affect resting site selection? Or is it topography and visibility? And what are the results? I chose to do results mainly descriptively, just because we're limited with time, but if you have any other questions, I welcome discussion afterwards. So leopards selected sites with lower horizontal visibility, which is something what might be depicted on this picture here, meaning that they were during the day rested in positions with dense vegetation, a lot of bushiness, but also some lower horizontal visibility might come from special features like cliffs and big rocks. On that topic as well, leopards seem to select very rugged sites with more special features, cliffs, ridges, and caves, as depicted on the lower picture here. And there was a very strong selection of topographically diverse sites with good long-distance view. Furthermore, leopards did not show avoidance of human infrastructure, for example, farmhouses depicted here, but they did seem to avoid water holes, such as this one. And going back to the models, in the model ranking, the model that best explained leopard resting site selection included covariates related to topography and visibility. And if we just look at the best model, the covariates that were statistically significant within that best model were just the ruggedness, so whether an area was medium rugged or very rugged, and the average visibility. So we see the very low average visibility was statistically significant. So we can draw some conclusions, and the conclusions are that our results show that leopards rely on concealment rather than spatial segregation for humans. Meaning, if they're hidden in an area that's in a very dense vegetation or surrounded by some big rocks and they feel comfortable in that area, they won't feel threatened by humans. And we sometimes saw their resting sites being very close to houses, roads, and farmhouses, and also very populated areas like the capital city of Windhoek. And this stresses the importance of such habitat features that provide good cover, may it be vegetation or special features. I'll now move on to some of the feeding ecology that we do our research on. As it was already explained in the first presentation, which I think is a very nice linking thing that we can do, methods of research are very similar among all cat species. And as we can do that for lynx, we can do it for the leopards. So when a cluster of GPS points forms, we can assume there was a kill site. And we often go to those kill sites as well for the leopards and see what prey species they are eating. And we can see that in our research area, there are three main prey species, which are the oryx, warthog, kudu, and to a lesser extent the stenbok and also springbok. And we visited 408 clusters of GPS points, and 346 feeding clusters were confirmed for 14 females and 11 males, which was quite successful in finding prey remains. And in a bit of a different graphics, here I wanted to stress out that the majority of the prey that we found in our research area was wild prey, while domestic prey was very negligible. But when we come to a kill site, not only can we see what prey species they were eating, so what were the prey items, if we deploy camera traps, as seen on the upper photo, and tie the prey species, the prey item with a wire so that some scavengers or the leopard themselves don't drag them away, we can see many interactions and ethology on what's happening at those kill sites. And one very interesting thing that we saw was the scavengers, which range from Cape starlings, brown hyenas, warthogs, jackals, honey badgers, and large avian scavengers such as the Vurox eagle and the vultures. But one of the very surprising things, and was almost shocking, was on one of the camera traps to see leopard with a collar, as you can see, feeding on prairie mains, and another leopard walking by. And that had us thinking, is there possible prey sharing among leopards? And in this picture, I ask, how many different leopards do you see? If we were to look at the specific fur pattern, we would see that for sure there's three. One is given away by the GPS collar, which was the animal that captured the prey, and then there was the big leopard that was feeding, and in between there was a smaller subadult also feeding. And here we say that prey sharing is simultaneous or sequential. Simultaneous as in the previous black and white picture where two animals were feeding on the same site, or sequential as here where three animals were feeding not at the same time. So use of the same kill by several individuals of the same species, which makes it different than scavenging, and we can discuss more in discussion later. Why is it different than scavenging? And it was till now observed in pumas, jaguars, Eurasian lynx, snow leopard, and mentioned once in a book for African leopards, but here we really found that it's happening much more than we assumed. So our data from camera traps on the topic of prey sharing illustrates that prey sharing occurred at 33% of all the kill sites that we monitored, when it was mostly shared by two leopards, and to a lesser extent even by three leopards. And most common was male to female sharing, and to a lesser extent than male and male, female to female, which is also because same-sex individuals don't overlap territories as much. And there are very big conservation implications of prey sharing, which I will try to illustrate in the case of the female L114, which we colored and released released back into her home range. And after a few months, a farmer where she was located on told us that he caught her and shot her because she made the kill. She killed one of his calves, so cattle. But then we looked at the telemetry data, and we saw that on the night that when the calf was killed, she was 10 kilometers away. And then the following night, when he decided to kill the perpetrator, she just came to feed at the kill site, and she was lethally removed then, even though she didn't kill the calf. And here I would like to stress that lethal removal by farmers was the main source of mortality of our colored leopards, 63% of all mortality. All the while, 30% of leopards shot by farmers, 10 individuals, were only scavenging on livestock prey or prey sharing with another leopard. But I want to end my presentation on a positive note, so I would like to explain some good practices employed by Farm Krumhoek in central Namibia, also one of the farms that we are living on when we do our research in Namibia. So they had high yearly losses to leopards. They lost up to 40 calves per year to leopard predation. And by employing some methods that were communicated to them by us researchers, they started using herders and herding dogs, and also keeping their livestock in corrals or cattle pens at night. And livestock losses were reduced to negligible amounts of 0 or up to 2 calves per year. And one might think that getting dogs, getting herders and corrals is very expensive and time consuming, and to some extent it is. By the positive sides of using those measures is the reduced cost of maintaining fences and other losses such as disease, birth-related mortality, and stealing of livestock by people. And all of this illustrates that coexistence between people and livestock farming and leopards is possible as long as there are prevention methods and natural high densities of natural prey populations. And I would like to thank you for your attention, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. And now the questions from the chat. Do you see similarity in behavior between American cougars and leopards? Both store their prey, both hunt for ambush.
Yeah, there's many similarities, and we often see that same researchers study both animals. Yeah, you can use similar methods, and often the research questions are similar. What is very different, though, is where they live. So Americas and Africa, because the managing system is very different. The land ownership is very different. And as well, the scale. In Namibia, everything is so large. It's so far apart. If you want to do field work one day, it usually takes 2 hours of driving, then 3 hours of hiking. Then you're at a location for a few hours, and then you have to go back. So, yeah. But if you have any specific questions, then I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you. Next question is, to what extent has poaching leopards reduced their population?
Interesting question, because there's a lot of poaching going on and has been going on since ever. 20 years ago, you could go to a government-sponsored shop and ask for leopard poison, and they would give it to you for free, and you could just put it in some meat and leopard would eat it, and you would reduce the population, apparently. Because what we've observed and what researchers prior to us have observed is that leopard densities and abundance has gone up in the recent years, even though all the poaching. And we guess that's contributed to the large population of natural prey. So government-sponsored poaching or removal of leopards has gone down, but there's still some poaching happening daily by farmers because, as I explained, the person who owns the land can manage their population freely. And even though leopards are IUCN vulnerable species, farmers can legally remove leopards if they have damages. So yeah, it's still happening both legally when they report it to the ministry and illegally when they don't say anything.
Thank you. Next question is, how did you come about doing field research in Namibia?
Short story, it was a happy coincidence. Long story is, I was since ever involved, or since doing my bachelor studies, involved in large carnivore research in Slovenia through NGOs. And I got to know my current supervisor, Miha Krofel. And then when the time came that he got the position, he invited me to apply, and then I was selected. So, yeah.
Thank you. Are you planning on assessing the problem of lethal removal of leopards from farmers in the future?
Yes, we will address that in 2 papers. One will be on feeding ecology. So we will, for the first time, describe the prey sharing phenomena, where we will focus on how thinking about prey sharing can actually help leopards survive, and maybe providing the farmers with such knowledge and giving them an option of not removing every single leopard that they capture at the kill site, because it might not be the leopard that actually made the kill. And secondly, when we will write about the home ranges in a focused paper, we will assess good farms versus bad farms, because there's good farms where farmers let the leopards roam free, and there's farms where they will be removed at the first site. So we want to see how many good farms or bad farms can or does average leopard home range cover, and then assess what's the survivability of those leopards on such farms.
Okay, and lastly, could you elaborate on the difference between scavenging and hunting? I think you said when you were talking about the traps and cameras.
Yeah. So you mean probably the difference between scavenging and prey sharing, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So scavenging is just visiting, or an animal that visits a kill site and eats there, and it's usually a different species. So if we move maybe to Europe, a lynx makes a kill, and then scavengers come, it may be ravens, bears, foxes. But prey sharing is when animals of the same species share that prey. And to maybe give a bit of a nuance to that, we did some modeling, and we saw that the probability of leopards finding the prey remains of other leopards coincidentally is very close to 0. So that we did with telemetry data. And so we think that there's some communication happening when addressing kill sites and prey sharing. So a leopard that's close by might communicate to a neighboring leopard, hey, I have some food, do you want to come eat? And then they move away and let the leopard eat. And we theorize that they do that in goodwill, because they might share prey remains once, and when they are in the need of some meat, they hope that they would be shared the prey remains by other leopards.
Okay, thank you. If there are no other questions by our listeners, I would like to thank all 3 of our lecturers today, Dr. Time Melovski, Dr. Dragana Šnjegota, and Master of Sciences Nik Šabedera. And this marks the end of our blog. Thank you all for listening, and be sure to follow all of our lecturers in their respected places where they work, or places who enables them to continue their research. And of course, follow BioBalkan for other similar events and lectures for the next week. That will be all for today. Thank you all. Goodbye.